Hello friends. Today we will talk about the 2019 film, The Other Lamb. At the beginning of the film, we see a group of girls sitting by a waterfall, doing household chores near a cabin in the woods. The main character, Selah, gazes into the forest and notices a portrait painted on a tree. In the evening, she and the other girls have dinner together with their mentor, whom they call the shepherd. Each of them is either his wife or daughter. After a communal prayer, the shepherd chooses one of his wives to spend the night with him. In the morning, the girls listen to his sermons with gratitude. The shepherd performs a special ritual. Selah spends time with him in the woods and asks about his first meeting with her mother, but he avoids answering. A girl named Eliza shares memories of her first encounter with the shepherd, but Selah warns her against such discussions. This leads to a conflict with the other women, whom they call sisters. Later, Selah visits a remote place in the forest, where two women are staying as part of their penance. One of them, Sarah, tells Selah that things will soon change. That evening, Selah witnesses the shepherd spending the night with one of his wives. The next day, the women prepare her for a special ceremony. Selah spends time alone on a hill, and later she is assigned to help deliver a lamb. At night, she tries to hide the incident, but eventually confesses that she fell asleep while watching over the lamb, leading to its death. The wives report this to the shepherd, and he expresses his disappointment. The next day, Selah observes a ram behaving aggressively, but she shows no fear. That night, a sheriff arrives at their camp and orders them to leave. In the morning, the shepherd informs the women that they must find a new home. They set off on a journey. During a rest stop, Selah feels her body changing and tries to hide her condition. On their way, they come across an abandoned house. The girls enter, but the shepherd becomes angry, believing the place is connected to lost souls. That night, Selah returns to the house, followed by Sarah. She secretly shows Selah the marks of abuse on her neck. The next morning, the sisters see blood on Selah and are horrified, as their beliefs dictate that an unclean woman cannot be near them. The women start to feel jealousy toward the younger girls, recalling that the shepherd once looked at them the same way. Selah asks Sarah if she went through the same experience. Sarah replies that it was punishment for her pride. Sarah remembers how she and Selah's mother were among the first to join the shepherd's community. His attention felt like sunlight to them. But after giving birth, Selah's mother developed an infection, yet the shepherd forbade taking her to the hospital, calling it a test of faith. As a result, she died. Selah imagines a car passing by and someone watching their community from afar. That evening by the fire, one of the pregnant sisters gently stroked her belly. When Selah and Sarah were alone, Sarah confessed that she once loved going to the woods, removing her clothes, and feeling the wind. It gave her a sense of freedom. She had been in the community for so long that she was now afraid to change anything. In the next scene, the shepherd demonstrates his cruelty toward Sarah, asserting his power. The other girls begin to wonder why Selah spends so much time with a woman who is in isolation. During their journey, the shepherd tells Selah that Sarah is useless. Suddenly, one of the women goes into labor. She panics, not wanting to give birth under such conditions. The others try to calm her and help her deliver the baby by the stream. However, she does not survive childbirth. As they prepare her body for cremation, her young daughter refuses to leave her side. The shepherd harshly pushes the child away. Sarah begins to accuse him and calls him by his real name, Michael. He silently sets the funeral pyre on fire. The women perform a ritual chant. As they continue their journey, Sarah confesses to Selah that the shepherd wanted to abandon the newborn. She pleads with Selah to stay strong and save the baby. When one of the girls notices something ahead, the shepherd harshly punishes her, publicly humiliating her. He reminds everyone of the importance of faith. Later, Selah approaches the humiliated girl and tells her that the shepherd had no right to treat her that way. Finally, they settle in a new place that Michael calls Paradise on Earth. Life in the community returns to its usual rhythm. By the lake, the shepherd conducts a purification ritual, submerging the women in water. When it is Selah's turn, he holds her underwater for too long. She begins to experience terrifying visions. That evening, around the fire, the sisters and wives discuss the rebirth that is supposed to happen the next day. That night, the shepherd calls Selah to him and orders her to let down her hair. He tells her that she looks just like her mother. He then tries to assert his power over her, but no intimacy occurs. Left alone, Selah imagines the women taking revenge on him in the most brutal ways. The next day, she tells the younger sisters a story about a strong and rebellious woman, breaking the rule that only the shepherd is allowed to tell stories. Soon, the sisters notice that some of the women have disappeared. The shepherd declares that a miracle has occurred. The sacred waters of the lake have granted them eternal life. Only their clothes remain on the shore. He claims that he must bear this burden so that one day his daughters will become wives. During his sermon, he calls Selah to him and announces that she is now his wife as well. She refuses, and in response he slaps her. But this time Selah does not stay silent. She strikes him back. In the final scene, the local sheriff discovers women's bodies washed up on the riverbank. In the forest, they find the shepherd, who has become the victim of a ritual sacrifice. Meanwhile, the sisters gather by the waterfall. They are now free.